Not yet. Okay, let's start a little bit early, because the first stage takes some time, so it's easy to just tag along if somebody's coming when the time is actually the right one. So once again, thank you for joining. This is something I'm remaking, and let's get started. I'm starting by adhering a book page to my journal. It's this one, and well, let me grab this for a second, because as you may see, there's some of the words kind of making a new story. This is from a novel, but I circled some of the words, and now they make a totally different story that was on the page. It was kind of a poetry or a little story, which you can use to spark interest. And I'm already done, like pre-chosen the words, because that might take some time, so I didn't want you to wait for me to actually pick the words. And what I'm using to adhere is clear gesso. As these Finnabair gessos are acrylic based, they kind of grab onto the page rather than are absorbed into it. So I can use this as adhesive. Why I'm using clear instead of white is because I want these few words to be actually seen. So I'm applying a layer underneath the page and also on top. You could do this with white gesso as well, but as white gesso has the white pigment, it would somewhat hinder some of the words which I then want to highlight. But if you only use a layer underneath and are really careful, you can do this all with just white gesso. And now it's in there, so you don't always have to use those soft body gels to adhere book pages. You can just use gesso. Then let's quickly dry, so the other layer won't. Sorry. Now the gessos won't mix and I get a full coverage, because then I'm grabbing the white gesso and painting all the other words with it, but the ones I've chosen to kind of highlight. This is also if you have scrapbooking papers you like somewhat, you can just hide parts of them, or if you don't like at all, the colors for example are off but the pattern is great, you can use a gesso layer on top, so that might do the trick that it then starts to be more in your taste. Hei Mari! Hei Leena! Kiitos kun tulitte. Toivottavasti kuuluu hyvin ja näkyy. Täällä aloitellaan. A couple of words in Finnish. So if you're just joining in, these are the first steps on the page. I've adhered an old book page to my journal using clear gesso, and now I'm covering the words using white gesso. while you could use the white gesso to adhere as well, then these words might get covered in the adhering stage. So that's why I'm using two different gessos. Like so. It's kind of modern poetry you could do, or story of your own. Just using a couple of words that are in the page and totally transform the story. Here we go. Then I got another quick dry. So while gesso is a primer, at least these acrylic based products you can use more than just one way. Then let's adhere the envelope. I don't want everything to be covered, but still I want this opening to be seen, so approximately there. These are modern envelopes, but I used tea to dye them using looking more like they would be old vintage looking envelopes. And this is just double-sided tape I'm using to adhere it here. Then it's good to have the gesso layer dry, because if you're trying to use double-sided tape on top of wet gesso, that just won't stick. Again, if you would like, you could use the clear gesso here as well to adhere the envelope. Then let's get rid of the extra. Thereabouts. These I altered just for this one, but if you have actual vintage envelopes, they work marvelously. Or then you can just use a regular envelope, depending the color scheme you're after. These were kind of inspired by old letters, so that's why there's the old paper tones and the blues. Then let's use the new stencils. As I was inspired by the letters, I'm using this script stencil. I think this one is called Ghostwrite. It's one of the new stencils by Finnabair. I wanted a kind of an ink tone, so I'm using Liquid Acrylic Prussian blue. I really love that tone. Hi Lynette! So just some paint, and then I'm dabbing with a sponge on top, and then to my envelope. I could go with the whole throughout the whole page, but I'm kind of concentrating just on the envelope here. To the other side. This is kind of to mimic handwriting, like there would be an address on the envelope. Here we go. Okay, I stenciled my journal as well, but that doesn't matter. It's okay. And then I'm doing a raised dimensional layer using the same stencil but with a different product. So here you can see those two. Another use for gesso. If you have done mixed media for a while, I'm sure you've used gesso to stencil to make a raised layer, but it's a handy technique, especially because the Finnabair gesso is heavy body, which means it's thick. So you can create a dimensional layer using it. I'm trying to avoid that blue area, so I'm keeping the gesso white instead of getting it baby blue. Just write if you have any questions. Kirjoitelkaa vaan, jos on jotain kysyttävää. And now that I have the gesso in my stencil, I'm throwing it in a bucket of water here underneath the table so I don't have to clean it right away. Here we go. Then while this layer dries a little bit, let me move this a little bit to the side. I have this piece of paper to decorate. I'm not sure if you can pick anything up. Maybe this way, yeah. Now you might see something. Because I used one of the stencils and embossed this with my Big Shot machine. So there was the silicone mat and paper and the stencil, and I get this raised effect. It's here underneath all the layers, but there, a little bit peeking through. So how we can make the impression more visible? One of the ideas was to use wax and kind of just go to the highlights, but as this is not as raised as with an embossing folder, for example, I get also the blue to the paper. It's just coloring a little bit more to the raised areas, but kind of turning the whole paper blue as well. Kind of that dark inky tone. Now you probably can see it a little bit better. The wax color I'm using is called Old Denim. And by the way, this is just the base showing, so it's looking white, but as you can see it's still very usable. Nothing wrong with it, you just have to kind of go through the white stuff, and then there's the beautiful blue tones underneath. Just a little bit there. I'm trying to be really delicate with my applying. Let me again show you this a little bit better. So you can see the pattern, but not quite. So I also used, as you could see from the sample, there was something white, so I used dry brushing. If you're just joining in, welcome, welcome. It's Riikka Kovasin here, doing a journaling project, although it may not look like it at the moment. You're staring at the black square, but this is something we are then layering. I usually do this when I'm dry brushing because the heat from my hand dries the paint a little bit, makes it more like impasto paints. Impasto paints are perfect for dry brushing because they are so thick and that kind of dry already, so they are easy to use for dry brushing. Somebody asked me about to do a live, I think it was from the impasto paints, but I actually thought that it would make a good trio. I make these triplets of posts concentrating to one topic, and today I filmed a trio with the impastos in mind for November. So just a little bit of white gesso, bringing that pattern more to the foreground so you can actually see. And this pattern, if you're just joining, it's made with the new stencils. I used the stencil like an embossing folder and run it through my C6 Big Shot machine and got this impression. So then let me put this here, so if somebody is joining, they see that there's actually a journaling project going on and not just pieces of paper. Because then I'm making another layering element, this time using just painter's tape or masking tape. This one is a little bit thinner than the regular one, let's say, at least here in Finland. So I'm just laying them here on top of my craft table, side by side. And as I promised, I'm using just one medium for the coloring, because there's to do gessos as well. I'm putting the liquid acrylic here. And then where is my stamp? Here. You can of course brayer. I'm just now dabbing and then using that as my ink. But as it's acrylic paint, then you're stamping with, you need to clean your stamp afterwards. I'm hoping it doesn't dry while I add just a little bit more tape, so I have enough when I then start using it. Like that, and then to the bucket of water it goes. What's nice with using an acrylic paint to stamp is kind of matchy-matchy, everything matches as it is the same color, but also after drying it's not going anywhere. So if you add any kind of water-based product on top, the tape will just look fine as it is. So there's some of kind of blobs where there's a bit too much paint, but then also the really thin lines. And these are kind of handy because, like I said, the inspiration was old letters, so sometimes those pens would bleed as well, and it's not like if you're using actual quill or that kind of pencil, it's not totally uniform what you get, so it kind of mimics that one too. Then one more layering paper and then we are using those to make the actual page. Here we have the stencil. And while I made this the usual way, like let's say just applying paint through the stencil, I'm doing this another way. It's not that visible in the ready page, but it's here. So it's kind of reversed stenciling in a way. So let me tear the paper in half and have all the tools ready because I need to be quite quick. So I'm inking, let's say, my stencil using again the same acrylic. Now I'm not going for the perfect pattern to the paper that's underneath, but I'm inking my stamp in a way. As acrylic paint is really fast drying, I need to work a bit speedily here. I guess that's a good enough area. Then let's move that. A sprit of water, just to make it easier to transfer to this paper. And let's see if I was working fast enough. No. The answer is no. Another try. A bit heavier layer. Now it's also a little bit wetter. Let's see. Well, better. Not perfect, but I can live with this. This is what I'm kind of after. Let's do one more, but we can still use this either as a collage material or then add something on top or tear it into little pieces. What also helps is the paper, that it's absorbing paper. This is 160 grams cardstock, so it could be a little bit thinner or even like tissue paper. More water, one more time, not adding any color. At least we have material now. And again, to the bucket you'll go. Stencils for me are tools, so I'm not too careful, let's say. But I do want the gaps to be open so I can actually get the pattern. Let me just quickly dry these. Whenever I'm doing a dimensional layer using any kind of acrylic product, whether it being the modeling paste or gesso, I try not to use a heat tool to dry it, because that may cause bubbling if you heat it too much and it starts boiling, and then you kind of lose that crispy image because it bubbles, goes around or one. So that's why I'm trying to let it air dry, but now we don't have time for that. If I would be doing this not on a live, then I would change to another project while this was drying. Then let's start building the main composition. We have these self-made tapes, which we can then layer here, kind of building the background, and also one this way, like so maybe. And then let's use a little bit of this tape as well. And this is surgical tape, I'm thinking it's called in English. Haavateippi. This is from the pharmacy. So it's this kind of beige colored cotton tape. And I really like the look of it. I've been meaning to do a project using it for the longest time, but now this live was the perfect kind of excuse to actually go and get one roll of it. Then let's add some writing tools, as we are writing a different kind of letter here. Now it would be really handy if the paste was actually dry, but it will be okay. So I'm kind of circling the area where I'm going to put my focal point. And as you can see, I'm not trying to draw a circle, I'm just doodling a circle. And then some ballpoint pen, as it kind of matches the tone of that Prussian blue ink, and also something that you usually have available. I know Finnabair did a journaling project, or kind of showing what she usually has always with her, so I unfortunately haven't seen it yet, but I'm thinking there's some sort of pens because they are easily found. And then we have some old notes, and we have our self-made layering material. I'm really liking this part, so we are using that. Then let's use a paper cutter for this, so not everything is torn. Naturally you could use scissors too, but I'm terrible with scissors, so I'm cheating and using a paper cutter here where you can see me. And then that one, maybe a little bit smaller. Here's the line, so maybe I'm able to cut straight. Yes. I'm usually building the paper layers on my hand. Then I'm thinking I'm tearing this into 2 pieces. Hey Bea! needs to be relatively straight. Maybe that way. Let's go with that. So now that we have made the layering material ourselves, everything will go nicely together as the colors will automatically match as they are the same color, just used a bit of different techniques and different surfaces. Then my trusty tool to adhere paper layers together. And not anything from the tape is any more visible, so let's add a little bit more. I think it's Seth Apter who said something about you can't be afraid to let something go when referring to layering. So even though there's layers underneath here, I'm still putting something on top. You can't get attached to those. What I used to do when I was scrapbooking, then I had an area for the photo, but I was always going a little bit bigger than I thought I needed, because usually it then ended up being too small and I covered everything. So that way some of the work underneath would still show in the finished page. And like that we have the layers there, and I can use a foam tape or a piece of cardboard or those little foam dots, or then you can just glue this straight to the journal. I love dimensional pages, and my journals, as you can see from here, they tend to be really bulky. But if you want flatter layers, then just use a regular glue to adhere these layers to the background. But I really like that there's something three-dimensional, so I'm often using foam tape like so, and then the vintage lady in place. Please let me know if you have any questions. This is kind of straightforward things, journaling. I'm hoping that you still get some ideas, like adhering with gesso or embossing using a stencil or the flip. I'm thinking the flip is really used if you're using ink, but you can make it work with acrylic paint as well. Like so. Let me show you the sample. Like this. And here we are. So quite close. Let's highlight these words. Self-made ladies sat with a sherry the next day of triumph. A really short story. I thought it would be funny to have these words and then a lady with a kind of a wedding gown. Kind of really a triumph. She found a husband, or he dared to ask her, or she dared to ask him. We need to cut this apart. And I can't use my fiskars for that. I need my other scissors for that. Kiitos Leena. Sama muuten suomeksi, jos on mitään kysyttävää, niin saa kysellä tästä tai jostain ihan muusta. Then just the finishing details. These are junkyard or scrapyard butterflies, and I often cut one butterfly apart so I can have either a bigger butterfly or then just use the wings, or then I can just use one part and save the other for another project. And these are just little knickknacks from the sewing drawer, which I then adhere here. Mari is asking for about a Finnish craft event. Kraftaamoon ei valitettavasti. Lapsilla on silloin syyslomanen ja meillä on valitettavasti perhemenoja, niin en ole tulossa. Mielelläni. Siis ensin olin ihan sille innoissani, että jee, mutta sitten huomasin, että eipä onnistukaan. I really want... There we go. There's a place for it. And then this one here. Maybe. And these details, they could be anything. I really love to combine the mechanicals with found objects or something that have a different story or are from my drawers. So it makes the page more personal. So there we go. I'm thinking this one needs something dark, but I don't have, well, I have these little paper pieces. Could I use that one? As there's kind of a seal, roundish shape. Let's see if this works. It could be bigger, but it's okay, so let's add it. And when I journal, I usually don't think too long. I just work more on instinct. Should I put something here to balance it out? Yes, I should. Let's put that one there. But yeah, it's just the last details and then the page is done. Like so. Really easy, quick, hopefully fun page using just one liquid acrylic color, a couple of gessos, and some knickknacks and stencils. I hope you got some new ideas how to use your stencils or any of the mediums. If you have any questions, if you're watching a recording of this, then just type them in. And well, thank you so much for coming today. Yeah, well, the story behind the paperclip is this. My blog name is Paperclip in Finnish, Paperiliitin, so I often use a paperclip in my work. But yeah, they are really handy because they are usually available in bulk, so you get a lot and just one is enough. So again, thank you so much for joining and have a great day or evening depending where you are. Sanotaan vielä sama suomeksi. Kiitoksia paljon, kun tulitte. Jos on jotain kysyttävää, niin saa kirjoitella missä tahansa sosiaalisessa mediassa. Ja hyvää illanjatkoa. Okay, thank you. See you again. Bye bye.